Hey friend, Happy New Year. Today we're talking about new beginnings and embarking on new adventures on the creative path. But I just want to take a moment before we begin to thank you for being here. Whether you've been listening for a while now or you just stumbled upon this episode, I'm so glad we found each other. And I want to hear from you. What are you loving? What do you want more of? What do you want to hear about on this podcast? What questions do you have for me? I'd love to create a future episode inspired by your questions, your requests, your interests, your desired topics. Whatever it is that's on your heart, send it my way. And you can email that directly to me, support@reawakenyourvoice.com. I will be reading and responding to each one of these personally, so please don't be shy. Reach out and connect with me. I can't wait to hear from you. Welcome to Reawaken Your Voice. I'm Lainey Prendeville Crawford, holistic voice coach, singer, song weaver. I believe the song in your heart holds medicine for yourself and for the world. And yet too often, something happens along the way. We shut down our voice and our song goes unsung. Whether you stopped singing years ago or have always harbored an unrealized dream to start, if you're ready to finally give voice to those unsung songs in your heart, then take my hand as I guide you to free yourself from the inner critic, reignite your creativity, find your courage, sing with confidence, and reawaken those dormant parts of yourself aching for a revival. So dust off your songbooks, tune up your guitar, bust out your singing bowls, your shakers, your drum. Actually, all you really need is your voice, your breath, open ears, and an open heart. Let's play. The artist's path often requires us to learn new skills, new ways of thinking, new perspectives. And often as we enter a new year, we're thinking about what we want to create. What are our goals, our dreams, our aspirations? What do we want to focus on or work towards this year? Sometimes I feel like that energy really kicks in come springtime. I've said that before, these natural seasons, as we come out of winter, we're emerging into that rebirth and new growth. But we start to form a vision at the turn of the new year. There's something about that calendar turning over that gets us dreaming again. And yet too often, these new projects, these new goals and aspirations, they can be derailed by perfectionism, the all or nothing mindset. We want to get it right. We want to do it right. And it must be done that way or else it's not worth doing. Or else it's better to do nothing at all. Or else. And so we stop before we even begin. Or we start and then we beat ourselves up for not being perfect from the get-go. And that is really deflating. That's why it's so important to approach these new beginnings, these new goals, or, unburied goals, those creative projects that are on our hearts. It's so important to approach these with a healthy mindset And this is where the concept of the beginner's mind comes into play. So this idea of the beginner's mind, this is a Japanese concept, a Zen Buddhist concept to be specific, called Shoshin. And it means the beginning stages. You're approaching something with curiosity. So there are no preconceptions. There's more of an openness. Kind of setting out on a journey of exploration. You're embracing the unknown and stepping into it with an open mind, with a beginner's mind. So when we're stepping into these new things, there will be frustration. There will be growing pains. But there is fruit on the other side of it all. So, is there something you want to start, or begin again, or learn anew? Is there a new path that's calling to you, or perhaps a pivot, a shift from the way you have been doing things, and there's a different way that's calling to you? But maybe you feel like you should be further along, like you should know that by now. If you're struggling to allow yourself to start messy, or you want to learn something new and do it with a fresh perspective, less pressure and more freedom, I have 5 tips to help you start with a beginner's mind. This is a concept that I had to embrace when shifting from classical operatic singing to finding my own artistic voice and singing the music that was calling me from within. So kind of like a folk, bluegrass, a little bit of gospel, a little bit of soul, a little bit of American spiritual mixed in, a little twang of country, a little edge, a little grit. This is the style that was emerging through me, but it was a deviation from the pure soaring sounds I was used to making in opera. Those sounds that I was trained to make. And don't get me wrong, when I was in that opera world, I loved singing that way. I loved the art form. I still love it to this day. It was a beautiful time in my life. But the day came when I needed to branch out. I needed to grow my own wings and take flight into my own style, tap into my own creativity, finding my own artistic voice and writing the songs that my heart was calling me to write. So this idea of the beginner's mind was not only beneficial, but necessary. It was a process of unlearning as much as it was a process of learning. I'm also embracing this attitude in my current season of newness, which is really a humbling time. This idea of humility is part of the beginner's mind, approaching it with humility. So I'm feeling that tug to go deeper with a wider spectrum of vocal styles and, kind of dipping my toe into somatic voice work, getting into the body and, going deeper with the mind, body, spirit connection while singing. So yes, this is something I've studied before in depth, and yet I know there's so much more to learn. So I have to approach it with an open mind and with curiosity, knowing very well with humility that there's so much I don't know. Another example of this is learning to sing into a microphone in the studio. Now, this is something that you'd think I would have learned right from the start, but my background is in opera, and we are, in a way, taught to be our own microphone, use the body as the amplification system that it can be. So, going into the studio, it's a process of learning how to sing naturally with this, what feels like an unnatural form of amplification to me. So that's a learning process. It's like this frustration and pressure comes in that I should know this already. Why don't I know this already? But applying this concept of the beginner's mind, being gentle on myself that no, I didn't learn it this way. This is new territory for me. So it can be fun, it can be playful. Another example is learning to play steel string this past year. So last year I bought my first acoustic electric guitar after decades of playing a classical guitar with nylon strings. So I learned on classical. I love the sound, the warmth that it brings, but I wanted to expand. I wanted to try something new. I had this folksy sound in my ear that I wanted to create. But with that learning process, there's the physical pain of building calluses with the steel strings, which is so different from the nylon strings. So, I could keep listing these new learning experiences. Doing this podcast, this is sharing my voice in a new way. I've been teaching for decades, but podcasting is a new way of doing that. So as you step into whatever part of the journey you're on, with fresh eyes, with new desires, new projects, new ideas, I have 5 tips to start where you are, to start with the beginner's mind. So let's dive into these 5 tips. Number 1. Meet yourself where you are. Meet your voice where it is. Let it be messy. Embrace the mess. I'm learning this with my toddler right now. It's just a season. You will grow beyond this, but right now it might be a little messy, and you just have to embrace it and love the moment that you're in. So you approach it with a non-judgmental perspective, releasing perfectionism, moving through those bumpy beginnings and smoothing it out as you go. And you will get to the other side of it, but you have to keep going through the bumps and just move through that part to a place where you can begin to smooth it out a bit more. So a lot of this is just permission to let it be messy and to embrace that mess and love it for the part of the journey that it is. Number 2, balance bold vision with grounded action. So you want to create a vision for where you want to go. And let it be your heart's desire. Don't be shy with it. Really open up and see, what do I want to create? But start where you are. And start with the path of least resistance. a small step that's right in front of you. Now, this may feel like a cop-out, like, well, why should I just take the easy way out? Well, you're taking the easy way in. This path of least resistance, you don't have to tackle your resistance head on if that's not working for you. You can. That is definitely possible. But there's nothing wrong with kind of maneuvering around your resistance or outsmarting it. What I'm saying is whatever works, that path of least resistance, go that way. You don't have to make it hard on yourself. I've been learning this recently where the big, bold vision, I see that I want to create multiple albums. I have multiple albums on my heart, like a whole portfolio of my songs, my creative work. Compiling a record, like literally a record of the songs that I've created throughout my life and that will be ongoing. And that's really what I see, is just I want to have a record of the creations and send them out into the world. Sure, let them move into the hearts of whoever may need them. But also, for my family to have that as a record. It might become a historical record. It might become lost along the way, but it's like I created something while I was here. That's what it is for me. That's the vision. So you have to be honest and realistic with your why and your desired outcome. So, okay, you have this big vision, but now you back it up. Like you back it up. Or maybe the better way to look at it is zoom in. So I have this big vision, which was overwhelming to me. So my resistance was strong to that. Like, make a full album. Do it with a bang. But when I zoom in and I look closer, my path of least resistance is one song. Just record one song, one single. So what's your path of least resistance? And then you reverse engineer that for daily, weekly actions. You have to make it tangible in the here and now. So this is the grounded action. It's a balance of bold vision and grounded action. Like, what can you be doing on a daily basis, a weekly basis, to begin making progress on this vision, starting where you are. Number 3, fall in love with the journey. The process itself, the creative process, the learning process. You're deriving fresh inspiration from the newness. Just the enjoyment of seeing new things that you hadn't seen before. As long as you may have been on this earth, you're still learning. That's why we're here. As long as we're here, we're not done learning. And like I said, sometimes it's unlearning that we need. So this is just like the process of creating, the creative process, being immersed in the act of creating itself versus always being outcome driven. Not that it's wrong to have a desired outcome and work toward that vision. Like, Hello, that's how we set and attain goals. That's how we follow through and complete our creative projects. But while you're in it, be in it. Release the outcome and hold the vision loosely to give it room to breathe, expand, evolve. It's just like if you're writing a song and you have an initial vision for what it is or what it will become, but it becomes something else in the process. Like you let go of certain parts. Sometimes you even let go of the phrase that it all started with, but that's the phrase that led you into what it actually became. So hold it loosely. This vision that you're creating, hold it loosely while moving through it with an open mind. That open-mindedness is a key component to the beginner's mind. Number 4, be gentle with yourself. Just as you would with a child learning to walk or talk or ride a bike. They're beginners at everything. But they don't overthink it and beat themselves up about it. They boldly go for it. And when it doesn't work, they just try again. They don't make it mean something about themselves. So forgive yourself for all the other false starts, the excuses, the times that life got in the way, or your thoughts got in the way, or real stuff came up that forced you to put your plans on hold. This is life. This is real life. But with the beginner's mind, if you carry this with you, you aren't thinking about all the other times it didn't work and expecting it to be the same. With the beginner's mind, you're approaching it with a new lens, with curiosity, with play. You're loosening the death grip on it. This is exploration, playful exploration. Like, what if I try it this way? Or, what if I do it that way instead? What might happen? Let's find out. So be gentle with yourself and play. Number 5, it's a practice. Singing is a practice. Creativity is a practice. Practice implies a work in progress. And aren't we all? The whole time we're here living this beautiful life, we are a work in progress. So you are practicing the art of singing. You're practicing the art of songwriting, performing. This is practicing your craft. And if you do it enough, you'll begin to see that it ebbs and flows. There are good days and there are bad days, but the consistency comes with practice. And you may say, okay, yeah, it's a practice, but what about excellence? I want excellence. Yes, and that still comes through practice. And there's a difference between excellence and perfectionism. Each of these has different energy behind it. There's different motivation. So is your motivation from fear, needing to prove something, defining your self-worth? Or is your motivation from respect for the work, desire to make it great, for the sake of your craft. So pay attention to the energy behind it. So just to bring it full circle, let's go through these 5 tips once more. Number 1, meet yourself where you are and let it be messy. Number 2, balance bold vision with grounded action. Number 3, fall in love with the journey. Number 4, be gentle with yourself. And number 5, it's a practice. So what do you need to give yourself permission to start at the beginning? To start where you are? And what is stopping you from allowing yourself to approach it with the beginner's mind? So uncover the thought or the belief, like, is it something you should know by now? Like the whole microphone thing with me. Is it pride? Is it not how your brain works? I used this excuse for a while with technology. Is it something for other people, but not for me? Do you feel like you should be further along and you're beating yourself up for not being good at it right off the bat? What are you afraid of when it comes to embarking on this new adventure? And perhaps there's a need to simply shift to the idea that this is a new adventure. It's a new season, a new part of you emerging, like that excitement bubbling up. Or maybe it's an old part of you that's been there all along and you're dusting it off to shine like new. This is the beginning of something beautiful. Whatever it may be, just start. Meet yourself where you are and begin. Before we go, I want to remind you that I would love to hear from you. So please let me know, what are you loving? What do you want to hear more of? What questions do you have? Maybe there's something that you've been wanting me to cover, like a topic you've been waiting for. I'd love to create a future episode inspired by your questions, your interests, your desired topics. Like, what are your requests? Send them my way. You can send me an email at support@reawakenyourvoice.com. And I'll also put that email address in the show notes. I can't wait to hear from you and connect with you there. Hey friend, thank you so much for listening. If this episode unlocked something in you or moved you in some way, I'd be so grateful if you'd leave me a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're streaming this, and share this episode with a friend who's been praying for a vocal breakthrough. Until we meet again, keep nurturing that song in your heart. Lots of love.